Ladies and gentlemen, would you put your placards up and make some noise for the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today, Keir Starmer will head off to the most important NATO summit in a generation. Britain has received intelligence that Russia could launch an attack on NATO as soon as 2030. This could put us in direct conflict with the world's biggest nuclear state. We could not be facing a more serious situation, and our politics should be reflecting the gravity of this moment. Every single party in Westminster should be talking about our national security. Instead, we have the opposite. Just at a time when Britain needs focus, Westminster has never been more distracted. We are sending an outgoing Prime Minister to that NATO summit who is completely powerless, and he is taking with him a defence investment plan which he knows is not fit for purpose, with barely half of the additional funding that our armed forces need. So little that the former Defence Secretary quit the government because he believes the plans would put British troops in danger. Are we really supposed to pretend that didn't happen? I bet you haven't forgotten, have you? No. And then it transpired that the small amount of money that had been announced wasn't even funded. Keir Starmer has left a £5 billion black hole for his successor. He stands up at PMQs and tells us everything is going fine. Britain's armed forces have never had it so good. And then the Labour MPs cheer. But we all know that they aren't really listening. They haven't realised that the problems with the Defence Investment Plan have not gone away just because Andy Burnham is riding to their rescue. And have you actually heard Andy Burnham say anything about the threats that we face? Have you heard him say anything about the threats we face? Last week, the RAF intercepted a Russian warplane. It was dropping sonar devices right next to a British aircraft carrier. What did Andy Burnham say? Nothing. Our undersea cables are already under constant attack. The next Russian assault on them could knock out the internet across the United Kingdom. What has Andy Burnham said about that? Nothing. Said nothing. Defence of this country should be his number one priority. But he says he wants to spend less time on foreign affairs. Meanwhile, Reform are demanding a general election. They might be ready for campaigning. They are not ready for government. They haven't even bothered to appoint a defence spokesman. They are completely distracted by their constant scandals and personal dramas. They think immigration is the only national security issue. They blame NATO for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Can you believe that? Their former leader in Wales is in prison for taking bribes from Russia. And don't get me started on the Greens who think that NATO should be abolished. You heard anything so ridiculous? I don't think that Vladimir Putin is going to be worried about Nigel Farage. And I don't think he's going to be worried about Andy Burnham either. Putin doesn't care how nationalised your buses are, and he doesn't care whether number 10 is in Manchester or London. What Vladimir Putin is interested in is whether Britain can defend herself or not. At a time when we need serious leadership, there is only one party acting with any common sense. There is only one party with a plan to keep Britain safe, and that is the Conservatives. Why is no other party supporting our plan to fund Britain's defence? It's because they don't understand the threats we face, and they're not interested either. They're not worried about Chinese spies. They're not worried about Russian aggression. They want us to spend less time thinking about Iran, who's threatening our oil supplies. Well, I am worried about Britain's national security, and that is why my team and I are coming up with the plans to keep this country safe. During an era of peace, defence spending went down as Britain focused on other priorities. We are no longer living in an era of peace. The threat level has changed, and it is time for us to respond. Conservatives want Britain to fund defence properly, so we have worked up a plan to save billions on welfare and spend that money on defence instead. And yes, that does mean making some tough choices. Politicians are here to make tough choices, but Labour MPs don't want to make those tough choices. And I think that's because they're not really Labour MPs. Do you think they're Labour MPs? No, I don't think they're Labour MPs. They are welfare MPs. They are welfare MPs. That is all they care about. It's all they care about. MPs who go around asking who they can tax to pay for more benefits. And I know that Andy Burnham will not have the votes for tough choices. He may have a big majority. He doesn't have the votes for tough choices. And I've already offered to work with Labour on this. And so I will reiterate my offer to the incoming Prime Minister, whether it's Andy Burnham or maybe even Al Carnes. He's not telling us what he's doing. But Andy Burnham, who's most likely, says that he wants to do politics differently. So let's do it. And I say to him, work with us and let's agree a plan to cut welfare and fund defence. Sadly, I suspect, like Keir Starmer, he's not going to take me up on this offer. But Britain cannot be put in danger. We cannot be put in danger because of self-interested Labour MPs blind to what everyone can see needs to be done. Everyone, including the former Labour Defence Secretary and NATO Secretary-General Lord Robertson, including former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair. They agree with us because this is common sense. Conservatives want our governments to prioritise our national interest. That's why we spent months working to kill Starmer's terrible Chagos deal. Apparently, Andy Burnham wants to bring it back. What is it? It is a shame. It is a shame. What is it about a plan to hand over British sovereign territory and pay £35 billion for the privilege that Labour loves so much? What is it about that plan? That is £35 billion that we could be using to fund our defence instead. Who seriously thinks this is a good idea? It is disgraceful. Thank you, Victoria. It is extremely disgraceful. So nobody thinks it's a good idea. Nobody thinks it's a good idea. It's because it is a terrible idea. And it's not just funding for defence that we care about. How about the treatment of our soldiers? The Conservative Party supports our brave veterans. Unlike Labour, we don't want to see them hounded unfairly through the courts. That's why we will continue fighting the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill at every stage. Conservatives want Britain to have a strong economy because we know that economic security is national security. Britain is being crushed under the highest tax burden since the Second World War. Common sense would cut that tax burden, not double down on the £60 billion of tax rises inflicted by Rachel Reeves on the public in just 2 years. Tax rises that have obliterated jobs and growth and made it even harder for us to fund our defence. Has Andy Burnham's team got any common sense? No. I haven't seen any sight of it yet. It doesn't seem like you have either. Because they are briefing the papers about raising capital gains tax and creating a new land value tax, a tax that would take more money from millions of people already struggling to get by. Andy Burnham's big idea is to tax the South to fund the North. It is robbing Peter to pay Paul. We want to look after everyone. Burnham says there is room for movement on tax. I have no idea where he sees this room for movement, but it is not in the real world. Britain is in the middle of a World Cup summer. There is another heat wave on. People are having fun, watching the football, and going to the pub, and quite right too. We should be able to enjoy ourselves. We should be. But we should be able to enjoy ourselves safe in the knowledge that our national security is being taken care of by the government. But it isn't. Burnham wants a summer holiday. Farage is in hiding. Starmer is retiring. Right at the time, yes, I know, it is good. It is good that he's retiring. Thanks, Andrew, for reminding me of that. He is retiring, but all of this is happening right at the time when difficult decisions need to be made. Silly season is not for the people running the country. Britain needs some grown-ups in the room, but there don't appear to be any outside the Conservative Party. No one else seems to want to do the hard work of government. No one else wants to make the tough choices this country needs. Well, luckily, we do want to do that work, and we do want to take those choices. Conservatives are a government in waiting, and we are ready to make the difficult decisions to keep our country safe. We are the only serious party in British politics right now, with a team and a plan to restore national security as the first priority of government. So I say to you, we will cut welfare and fund defence. We will restore common sense. We will get Britain working again, and we will unite our country. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now, unlike other party leaders, I'm going to take some questions from the media. Can we start with Carl Dinnan from ITV?
Thanks very much. Carl Dinnan from ITV News. To get to 3.5% of GDP on defence spending, which is what NATO wants by 2035, you're going to need an extra 22 billion quid or so just in today's money. Is all of that going to come from welfare cuts? And can you just outline what you would cut to get that amount of money?
So we have said that we need to get to 3% by the end of this Parliament. 3.5% is the ambition. That's what Keir Starmer has said to NATO. He's going to NATO today with absolutely no plan whatsoever to get to 3.5%, and even a black hole on what he has laid out in the Defence Investment Plan. So we have started explaining where we will get the money from. We've said that we will replace the two-child benefit cap. We have said that we will have a sovereign defence fund, repurpose Ed Miliband's net zero funding, the money that he's wasted, put that into a sovereign defence fund. That gets to between 11 to 50 billion pounds. It's not all public money. Some of this will come from crowding in private sector investment. That's what he's doing now. We cannot assume that all of this can come from cuts on welfare. You're absolutely right. But if you look at what Labour is doing, this Chagos deal, for example, that's £35 billion, £400 million just in this financial year alone. That is not serious. That is not serious. That's money that we have said could be used to upgrade our frigates. Those were plans which we left in place when we left office in 2024. Labour paused all our plans, started a strategic defence review, and is now failing to fund their strategic defence review. We haven't found the money to 3.5%, but there is no other party that has found as much money as the Conservatives, and we're continuing to do the work to make sure that we find more so that we can keep our country safe. Alex Rogers from Sky News, please.
Morning, Kemi. There have been reports that Donald Trump may criticise the UK and other nations for not spending enough on defence. Would a public intervention like this from the US president be helpful, or should such criticism be made behind closed doors? And another, if I may, do you think Nigel Farage should face another investigation by the Standards Commissioner for gifts he allegedly received from George Cotterill before he was made an MP?
So on President Trump, he's already been criticising publicly, and as it happens, previous presidents did that as well. The funding for NATO, or rather I should say the underfunding for NATO defence spending, is something that America's presidents have said repeatedly over the years. What is unique about Donald Trump is the way he says it, but the point that he has made is not one that is new. I think that his belligerence on this issue has been one of the reasons why countries like Germany have increased their spending to 3.7%. Poland is spending about 4.8%. They've made these increases in the last two years, as far as I can see. What have we been doing in that period of time? We have been paying for more welfare. I think we need to get our act together and stop complaining about how President Trump is speaking about us and the hurty words. Of course, I would prefer if he made those comments in private, but the priority right now should be in finding the funding, not complaining about the criticism. And it's not for me to decide whether or not the Standards Commissioner should investigate. I don't comment on those matters. They are independent. I shouldn't be influencing. But I do think that what we are seeing right now is the sort of chaos which we would see under a Farage government. I'm working very, very hard to make sure that we don't have a reform government. Our win in Aberdeen South showed that when Conservatives have a good economic plan, we can beat reform. And I think the thing that's really surprised me most was what he said. It was on Sky News that he saw this, where he was being asked questions and then talked about Leveson. So he's hinting at press regulation. For all of the criticism and the attacks, and I would even say abuse that I've got from the press, I've never once recommended us curbing our free press. I think this is one of the amazing things about this country. And I would be very worried about a reform government using government power to control the press. I don't think that would be absolutely right. I'm surprised that he mentioned Leveson. That is not what Conservative policy is. Chris Hope, GB News.
Thank you, Kemi Badenoch. You said there that no one wants to make the tough choices the country needs, but you didn't make them in 14 years in power. You didn't cut, your government didn't cut the welfare budget. I know you weren't in charge, but you were a cabinet minister. Why should voters trust you on this? And can I ask you about student loans? Students, young people, were missold £200 billion of student loans, most of it on your watch as a government. It's an outrage. Why won't you wipe that slate clean?
Okay, so tough decisions. You said I had 14 years. I didn't have 14 years. I only got there 7 years ago. And I wasn't in government all that time. And certainly, last time I checked, I wasn't the Prime Minister during those periods. But what I am showing is what the Conservative Party under my leadership would do. And it's not true that we didn't cut welfare. I remember Ian Duncan Smith actually making some very significant welfare cuts. It was very tough, and we did it because it was the right thing to do. And if we hadn't made those tough decisions, we would not have been able to support the country during COVID, which is when welfare spending went up again. And that's because a lot of people lost their jobs. We paid people to stay at home. We looked after the economy so we could do those tough things. We're the only party that can do that can look after the economy in this way again. You know, Chris, I hope you've seen my 5-point economic plan. We're bringing an economic revolution that will set business free so that it can create that growth. And on student loans, the decisions that were made on student loans were right for that time, 2012, 5 years before I became an MP. They're not right for 2026. I am the leader of the Conservative Party now. I'm making policy positions for now, not for 20 years ago. And that means doing what is right for students. That is why I have said that the amount that they are paying on their loans is abhorrent. It is not fair. Many of them are coming out with £60,000, £70,000 of debt and they can't get jobs. We need to make sure that they have jobs. Keir Starmer has been killing those jobs. We have a graduate recruitment crisis. Unemployment has increased every single month since Labour came into office. Andy Burnham does not have a plan to fix that. we do. We are going to sort out Plan 2 student loans in particular. I've said that we're going to make sure they're not paying so much over inflation. We have found the money to do that as well, some of it coming from other bits of the education budget that are not performing and not delivering for those students. I want everyone to know that we have a plan. We have been doing the hard work. We have been thinking, and that's why I'm able to answer questions like that this morning. Thank you. Alex Forsyth from the BBC.
Hello, thank you very much. Just to follow up what my colleague Carl Dinnan asked you about, on welfare, you have said very clearly, tough decisions needed. We will cut welfare to pay for defence. Beyond reinstating the two-child benefit cap, can you spell out which areas of the welfare budget you're looking at? Are you talking about working age benefits, health and sickness benefits, and can you rule out touching pensions?
So I've always been very clear that the triple lock is our policy. The areas of welfare that we're very concerned about are out-of-work benefits that are being paid to people who can work but who are not working. So we're not talking about taking away people's disability. There's an article in the Times today that talks about 100,000 people who have got ADHD who are not working, a 40% increase since Labour came into office. We have identified, and we put out a paper last year, there's about £12 billion, if I remember off the top of my head, specifically on low-level conditions that people are claiming out-of-work benefits for, where they can actually work. And actually, for many of these people, the best thing would be to get them into work. That's the best thing to deal with poverty. So it cannot be the case that we continue to spend more on welfare than we earn in income tax. The rider is now heavier than the horse. This situation is not sustainable. Many people are deciding that it doesn't make sense to work. The more we allow this culture to pervade, the more we're going to get people saying, it's not worth it, I'm just going to go on benefits, and that means a smaller and smaller number of people are having to pay for a larger and larger number of people who are not working. That is not the Conservative way. It is not common sense, and that's why I keep saying that we're going to get Britain working again. Ryan Saby from The Sun.
Thank you. You're calling for a block on the early release of offenders today, but would you consider a Rwanda-style scheme for foreign offenders? Would you be willing to talk to third countries to free up prison space and see these criminals leave the country?
Yes, I would. We need to deport all foreign criminals. Too much of our prison space is taken by people who shouldn't even be in this country in the first place. So that is definitely something that we should do. And I'm particularly worried about what we're seeing with this early release scheme. I have heard from grooming gang survivors who say that their abusers are coming out without having served their full sentences. What message are we sending? Basically, that you can commit these crimes and get away with it. There are no consequences anymore, whether for minor things like shoplifting or really horrific things like the repeated rape and abuse of young women in our country. I'm sick and tired of seeing paedophiles and child groomers and rapists get away with these crimes, and not serving a full sentence, in my view, is getting away with it. We need to crack down on this, and we are bringing in tougher policies. There's much more that we will say on this, but what Labour should be doing is stopping this early release. Andy Burnham said he didn't like it, so I would like to see him voting with us against early release later on today. If he doesn't do it... If he doesn't do that after saying that he disagreed with the policy, then I'm afraid his words are not worth the paper they're written on. Claire Ellicott from The Mail, please.
Hi. On defence spending, the MOD is notoriously wasteful and has wasted billions of pounds of taxpayers' money. How do you ensure that any extra cash that the Defence Department got would be spent well and not wasted? And could I just try again on Nigel Farage? Do you think he should have declared the funding that he received from George Cottrell? Thank you.
Thank you. So on the MOD and wasteful spending, James could give you chapter and verse on... So many chapters and many verses, he says. Many chapters and many verses on what's going wrong with defence spending. We recognise that. There are changes that we would want to make to the tendering and the procurement process, for example. I think we should look at some of the ways that we are prioritising. I do think that we need better techniques in terms of making sure that we're more agile, that we can accelerate spending. So much of what is going wrong is classic bureaucratic management. There's way too much bureaucracy in the way that we do things. But that doesn't mean that they have got enough money. The threat is changing. It is not 2010 anymore or 2015. It is 2026. And we can't keep talking as if we are living in more benign times. The Prime Minister himself has said that the intelligence assessment is that we could be at war with Russia, that NATO could be at war with Russia by 2030. That means that we've got to get our act together, and that means spending a lot more money on defence. On your second question about declarations, we all have to make declarations. I had to make declarations day in, day out of people who are giving donations and gifts or whatever so that people can see where the money is coming from. Why does Nigel Farage want an exception? Why does he think that he is better or more important than the rest of us and he doesn't have to follow the rules? We all need to follow the rules. So yes, if he did receive benefits and gifts in kind, then he should declare them. Why does he not want to do that? He keeps saying that he's a man of the people. No man of the people, as far as I know, gets £5 million cash as a gift for no reason whatsoever. And the reason why these stories and these scandals keep pursuing him is because he won't do what everybody else does, is come out and answer the questions properly. Telling people that it's none of their business means that the stories will continue. There will continue to be questions asked. He should just come out and be straight with people. That's what I do all the time. Genevieve Hall-Allen from The Telegraph.
Hi, thanks, Kemi. So you've said that you believe that Andy Burnham has not made enough public comment about defence and national security and what he would do. Are you saying that his lack of comment is putting the country at risk? And what does he need to do? Do you think he should make an urgent statement setting out his policy on defence and national security before recess, for example? And also, if I may, about the early release scheme. You know, you say that it's a really problematic policy and it is, you know, causing so much fear among victims, particularly of sex offences. But there is an overcrowding problem in prisons. So what would you do to alleviate that at speed?
Right. So on the question of Andy Burnham, what I have actually said is that he needs to come to Parliament before recess. It would just be adding an extra day or two. Labour has set up their process so that Andy Burnham or whoever doesn't get to answer any questions in front of MPs. He's not answering questions from the media. He's not answering questions from MPs. He wants a summer holiday, and he wants all of us to go away until he's decided what he's going to do. Russia is watching. We had a Russian warplane drop sonar devices around British ships. We saw what happened with that warning shot that was fired at a yacht. We can't just pretend that nothing's happening. And he's got absolutely nothing to say about this. And I think that's because he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what to think. We have someone who's coming in as Prime Minister. He's not having any hustings, not answering questions. And we need to be really worried about that. Yes, of course, it's summer. And yes, there's a World Cup on and the quarterfinals of Wimbledon. And we all wish that we don't need to think about these things. The public probably don't need to. But as a politician, as the leader of the opposition, the person who's supposed to hold the government to account, I'm not taking my eye off the ball. I am paying attention. And I do think that he's got some serious questions to answer. He should come to Parliament and answer those questions. If he really is the Prime Minister in waiting, he needs to start acting like a leader. On the point about early release, we do need more prison places. This is something that needs to be done at pace. But the solution to overcrowding is not to release sex offenders so that they can commit more offences. The last time Labour did this, some of those people were back within 24 hours. And we had a plan to use some spaces in foreign prisons where there was capacity. I would like to see some creativity from Labour in terms of solving this problem. They've just given up. Oh, well, we can't defend the country. We're not going to find the money for defence. We don't know how to smash the gangs, actually, so we're not going to defend the borders. We're just going to let the prisoners out onto the streets because there's not enough space. Where is the thinking? They're supposed to be the government, for goodness sake. They are not the opposition. They need to come up with solutions to sort this country out. If they can't do it, then they need to call an election so that those of us who do have a plan can actually sort the problems out. Aaron Newbury from The Express.
Hello. You've said before that it looks... you've been surprised that you said that Andy Burnham won't cut welfare, that he shouldn't raise taxes, that he shouldn't increase borrowing. It sounds like you're saying that the issue with national security is not the person leading the Labour Party, it's the Labour Party itself. So you've been a little reticent about calling for a general election. Surely the way to guarantee national security is to call an election and let the public kick Labour out completely.
I haven't been reticent. I've been very clear that if Andy Burnham does not find the money for the Defence Investment Plan, then he should call a general election, because we had a Labour Defence Secretary resign saying that our troops are not being protected. I don't know why Labour is so complacent about this. We've never had a Defence Secretary resign because his party and his Prime Minister could not defend the country. It's extraordinary. And the shrug of shoulders and, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about that attitude that Labour is showing is the reason why I say the problem is not just the various leadership contenders. It is the Labour Party. They will not protect our country because all they really care about right now is welfare. Bethany Dawson from LBC.
Hello, thank you. Do you believe your predecessors did right by defence? The size of the army fell and spending on defence also fell. And you've said you'll work with Labour on this. Have you spoken to Andy Burnham's team at all? Do you have a view on who his defence secretary should be?
It's not for me to pick Andy Burnham's cabinet. It is slim pickings from the Labour backbenchers. I'm afraid it's very, very slim pickings. I was amazed, actually, that Dan Jarvis took on the role after John Healey resigned. But on the subject of my predecessors, defence spending went down every single year since the Berlin Wall fell, since I was 9 years old. They were dealing with what they thought the threat level was at the time. I'm pretty sure that if David Cameron or someone else said, let's spend billions and billions of pounds more on defence back in the day, people would have said, why are you doing that? Russia was in the G8. We were having a golden economic, what was that? Do you remember the golden something with China? Yeah, the golden, thank you, Mark. The golden era with China. If we had been saying we're spending money on defence because of the threat from China and the threat from Russia that was in the G8, it would not have made any sense at the time. There's a lot of hindsight analysis that's coming out on defence. No party was telling us, for all of Labour's shroud waving, at no point did they say spend more money on defence. They actually said spend less on defence. We had Jeremy Corbyn wanting to get rid of our nuclear deterrent and leave NATO. So I don't need Labour giving us any lectures on defence. I want to deal with the world that we're in now. Whatever happened in today, and take care of the future. And that's why we're working so hard to make sure that we can get 2-3% by the end of this Parliament. Thank you. Noah Hoffman from The Spectator.
Thank you, Kemi. The Spectator recently revealed that the Treasury is putting DEI above knowing how to count in its graduate recruitment process. Will you commit to reinstating numerical reasoning as a criteria for coming into the Treasury? And quickly, if I may, you spoke before about the triple lock. You've said you're absolutely wedded to it. Is there ever going to be a conversation within the Conservative Party about how sustainable and credible this policy is, particularly given intergenerational wealth gaps, or is this eternally a Tory policy, in your view?
So I have been very clear on the triple lock that it is our policy, because when the Conservative and coalition government came in 2010, there was a lot of pensioner poverty. The triple lock, cutting the triple lock is not a growth policy. Cutting welfare is a growth policy because you're not paying benefits and you get people back into work. Moving bits of money around, which is what the argument about the triple lock is, does not deal with the fact that our country is not growing. If we were growing at 2-3%, no one would even be talking about the triple lock. It is yet another example of dealing with the symptom rather than dealing with the root cause, which is about economic growth, creating jobs, being a productive society, not having loads of fake jobs and so on. Which brings me to your first question about numerical reasoning in the Treasury. I'm an engineer. If it was up to me, everybody would have to do numerical reasoning, including lots of people who write things in the newspapers when the numbers don't add up. But I don't have any power to control that. We believe in meritocracy. That's what the Conservative Party is about. I've given speeches about it. I am actually quite shocked that the Treasury had that policy. It was something that they must have kept from ministers, because this was the first that I ever heard about it. I don't think anybody with any common sense would think that the Treasury should not have numerical reasoning as part of its assessment. It should be there for all of the public service, not just the Treasury. So that's absolutely something that should be coming back. If Labour don't do it, we certainly will. David Lynch from PA.
Hello there. Thanks very much, Mr. Badenoch. Yeah, David Lynch from PA. Just want to return to defence spending again. You've said that you would largely seek to make up shortfalls in defence spending from welfare cuts, but plans often have to change when they come into contact with reality. I can see behind you there's some big signs that say no more tax rises, but can you genuinely say that you would take off the table tax rises to pay for defence spending?
So if we tax so much that the businesses disappear, then we're not going to have the money for defence. One of the things that Rachel Reeves has tested to destruction is that increasing taxes does not necessarily create growth. People are leaving our country. Investors are choosing not to invest. We have fewer IPOs in London now than Mexico does. The money for defence cannot come from businesses that aren't here. That's what worries me. Simply increasing taxes to the point where growth is completely killed will actually have an even worse impact on defence spending. That's why we're saying we need spending cuts. We need spending cuts in the right places. We don't want to see public services go backwards. And that's why we are identifying where the waste and where the spending should come from. Spending cuts should come from. We need to fund our defence. We can do that in a coordinated way. That's why our welfare policy is linked to our defence policy. Our defence policy is also linked to our energy policy. There's a lot of waste that's going into net zero projects. They're not tackling climate change. They're bankrupting the country. There's a better way of thinking about these things. That's why it's not just no more tax rises that you see on those placards. There's also, it's time for common sense. This is the thing that I want people to understand. We're going to need common sense to sort out many of these problems. Thank you. Peter Walker from The Guardian.
Hi there, Kemi. Just to take you back quickly to one of the cuts you want to make. You said you want to reinstate the two-child cap. Obviously, if you do that, then that's a lot of children who are growing up hungry and poor. And there's a lot of studies which show that the long-term fiscal impact of that can actually be greater than the money you save, because children who grow up without proper meals and stuff like that, their education outcomes are worse, they earn less over time, they need more support from the state. Can I ask just what work the party has done to factor that in, just to make sure it is actually going to be a net benefit in the long term? And if I can also, can you just explain what it is about... Can you explain what it is about leading a party where the average voter age for you is 62 and rising every year that makes a triple lock such an appealing prospect?
So the triple lock is a policy that we have because it is the right thing to do. I don't pick policies just because of voter demographics. People know what I believe in. I've been very consistent. We do the right thing. If circumstances change, we also explain what our principles are and how we're sticking to our principles. We don't want to see pensioner poverty, but as you heard me earlier, we also have a plan for young people. Abolishing stamp duty is mainly for younger people. Dealing with student loans is also for young people. There are loads of young people in this room right now. I hope you can see the Conservative Party voting age is actually getting younger under my leadership. But you asked a question on child poverty. I think it's very, very important that people understand the argument here. I disagree with the premise that the Guardian has. The measures for relative child poverty change depending on how many billionaires come in and out of the country. They are warped, and the best thing to do to deal with child poverty is actually to get their parents into proper, well-paying jobs. That is what's going to change. That's what's going to change their lives. At the moment, what we are doing is we're taking money from other people, making them poor to give to the people who fall under the relative poverty threshold. This is robbing Peter to pay Paul. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. We keep testing this idea of giving more and more benefits to destruction. We're seeing less and less productivity in our country. We are condemning generations of families to a lifetime on welfare. I just disagree with this argument completely. I know it is a Guardian argument. It's probably one that the paper is never going to change, but we have a different opinion. We are the Conservative Party. We're not the welfare party. We believe that work pays, and we believe that there is dignity in work. We need to create more jobs. We have an unemployment crisis. That is going to get more people on welfare, not fewer people. That is going to create more child poverty. Our policies are actually going to create jobs. That's the best thing we can do in order to relieve those people, especially those children who are living in poverty. This is the best way, and we will stick by that because no other party is thinking of how to solve that issue. Athena Stavru from The Independent.
Hi, thank you. You've accused Andy Burnham of taking a summer holiday just as he comes into office in a few weeks. Do you think he should formally push back summer recess so he can take questions from yourself and other MPs? And also, you've said you're concerned about him not having hustings or facing questions from his own party, but one former minister, Al Khan's, hasn't formally ruled himself out of the race yet. Do you think he should challenge? And would you prefer to work with him rather than Andy Burnham on defence?
Well, it's very interesting that Al Khan's, when we had the privileges vote on Starmer, he turned up for that, but the day before, he didn't turn up to vote with veterans on the Northern Ireland bill. So I would like Al Khan's to put his money where his mouth is and actually show us what it is he believes in by voting rather than not turning up when the vote is a bit tricky. With Andy Burnham, I have said, and I continue to say, that if he wants to be leader of this country, he needs to show that leadership. Answering questions on Reddit might be really fun, but it is not serious questioning. The place where we hold our leaders to account is Parliament. MPs are elected by the people to hold the government to account. We want to do our jobs. He should come to Parliament. He should extend the recess by a day or two, and he should say what it is that he intends to do as Prime Minister, and he should get questions from members of Parliament before he has his summer holiday. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope you all have a lovely day. Enjoy the sunshine.